Hey everybody, this is Tom from VermiBag. It's been 9 days since I started the migration process on the VermiBag Tote. I did an update on it after 3 days. The worms were really moving over fast, so I went ahead and added additional food into the 2 bait sections on the side, and then I let it run for another 5 days, 6 days here now. So I took a peek at it yesterday, and I mean, it really looks pretty good. I think it's ready to harvest already. At least I'm going to try it. So 9 days with the migration, baiting both sides, keeping those sides completely full of food. I actually added a little bit of worm chow onto the side of them too. Just keep feeding it and keep feeding it. I looked at the center section a couple times. I mean, it looks pretty good. I see a few worms here and there, but I actually don't think it's going to be too bad. So I'm going to take the contents of the center of the bag and place them in a little tray, and then I might put them into a VermiBag bucket to sit for a while, let any cocoons or small juveniles that I missed, get larger and go into that tray. But if there aren't too many, I may stick them in the sifter and just run them through the sifter right now. But let's pull them out and take a look at them and see what they look like first. Okay, so let's open up this VermiBag Tote and see what it looks like inside. Now you can definitely tell a huge difference between the center section and the bait sections, of course, but this has worked over a little bit more too. So the worms have definitely been up in here off and on. I don't know if they're just kind of going from one side to the other, or they're just worms that are still hanging out in there and they're working this material over better. The side sections, if I dig down into these, let me just dig down all the way here and just see what's down there. Yeah, I mean there are lots and lots of worms in the center side, the side section, the bait sections. So all I'm going to do is bring a small little tub up here, and I'm just going to start grabbing the material that's in the center and placing it in the tub, and then take this and put it into the tray down here on the side. And of course, as I go through this, if I can find any additional worms as I go through this and go ahead and throw them into each of the sides, I will. But ultimately, I want to take this complete center section, and I think we'll be amazed at how much material is actually here when we get done and we pull this all out. So let me just start going down through. Material's well worked over. So far, I really don't see any worms. Moisture content is really good. I mean, it's really nice right here. I got a stinking suspicion down at the bottom it might be a little bit wetter than I want if I was going to do a sifting right now. But you can see the material there. It's really nice. I've seen a couple tiny little worms here and there. I don't see them in there right now, but there are a few. But overall, I really don't see any worms. So I'm going to plate this in the tray that I have over here. Then we'll weigh this too and see how much weight I get out of this. Pull some of this plastic out. I'm actually really happy. I mean, the whole concept of this is no different than the bait trays that I started using a couple years ago. Take a little Rubbermaid or a little Tupperware container and drill some holes into it and stick it in, some bait into it, and put it in your system. And that worked really well. I have quite a few videos on that. And but this is the same concept, exactly. And the whole idea having on both sides, the worms don't have to migrate very far in order to get to one of the baited sections. Now, I've seen a couple worms in here. You see me pull a couple of them out, but honestly, so far I don't think I've seen more than a dozen worms at the most. So I've probably thrown a half a dozen over the side there, but it is a little moisture right down here on the bottom. I'm not going to call it muddy, but it's plenty moist right here. I don't know if I'd be able to sift that or not. If I mixed it in really well with the drier stuff on the top, I'd probably be able to. Ooh, there's a bunch right there. There's a clump. I'll take that whole batch. There's got to be 8 or 9 worms right there. And again, it's right here at this, right at the bottom of the bag. It's pretty moist. And I might be pulling some of the stuff right along this migration panel, this wall here that we have in here. And they may have fell through some of these openings. So that might be where they're coming from. A few more worms there. A little chunk of plastic, I don't know where that came from. Yeah, there's a whole bunch. Maybe I can zoom in along the side here and I'll show you what that looks like. So you can see all the worms that are right here along this migration wall. They're coming through one of the slits that are in here. So there's a lot of food over on this other side, so they're all right here. There's 4 or 5 of them right there in that little slit right there. There's at least that many along here. But overall, this wall does a really good job of keeping the worms out of here when you're doing the harvest like this. I mean, I had a few of them that pulled in from the side, but really it wasn't bad at all. So I think that's it. Let me reposition here and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so that's everything. I have the whole center section completely empty. So, I mean, a few things I need to do. I'm going to go ahead and show you what the castings look like, and then I'm going to go ahead and throw some new bedding and a few food scraps and stuff in the center section, and the system will be, what I'll also do is I'll pull part of the baited sections from here. I want to bring the bag down to a level point, so I don't want the sides completely full and then this one just a couple inches in here. So I'll take some of the material out of here, place it in the center, and then put some new bedding over the whole top of the whole thing. And I'll do that after we take a look at the castings. Okay, so these are all the castings that I got out of the VermiBag Tote. There's about 4 gallons here, so actually it'll put a big dent in a VermiBag, a vermi bucket if I put it into the store. And I think that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. There's still quite a few little worms in here, and there's probably some cocoons. And the vermi bucket works really good for storing anyway, because it's aerated all the way around, so there's plenty of air in here, so the castings can sit in there for as long as they want. You can just store them in the vermi bucket if you wanted to. So I'll stick them in there, put a little bait tray in them, and in a couple of weeks I'll pull out the bait tray, and that'll probably have a pretty fair number of worms in it. So all I'm going to do, quickly go through this material and pull out any obvious worms that I see. Probably just take a couple minutes to do this because there's not an awful lot. Actually, I don't think it's even going to be worth it. I mean, I don't see that many worms. I pulled out about 5 or 6. And so I'm going to go ahead and get a vermi bucket. So I got the vermi bucket here, so I'm going to go ahead and just place all the contents that we got out of the vermi tote into here, and then we'll put a little bait tray in there and let it sit for, a week or so, or maybe a couple weeks, and let everything hatch. But you can see what the finished castings look like. I mean, they're really nice. Very few worms in here. So here's all the castings out of the VermiBag Tote in the vermi bucket. Now all I'm going to do is just take this Tupperware container that I have all the holes drilled in, and I'm just going to hollow out a section here, place this thing in the middle, put some food in here, and we'll let it sit for a little while. I won't bore you with the details of that. I'll get it set up and I'll show you the results of that probably next week, or I might let it go 2 weeks. Let's go ahead and grab the tote and reset that thing and get it going again for another cycle. Okay, so all I'm going to do is take, basically half of the contents roughly from each side and put it into the center. And then once we get it pretty much level all the way across again, I'll go ahead and throw some bedding on top. I just go down about halfway. See the amount of worms in here. A nice clump there for sure. Another huge clump of worms there. So, I like that. Then we'll take some from this side. Okay. So now the bag's level for the most part. It doesn't have to be exactly level. I mean, that's here and there really, but you know, it's close. And you can see how the slots work in these migration panels. I mean, they're wide open, like this one here. The worms can freely go back and forth there. So, you know, as you fill this thing up, if you want to kind of keep them a little bit straight, I suppose you could, but I don't really think it matters at all. I mean, they're there just to facilitate an easy harvest like we just did. Right now, I'd treat this just like a single compartment for the most part. Just add bedding and stuff equally throughout it. So all I'm going to do now is go ahead and add some of my bedding on the top of each of the 3 sections. And I'll probably come back tomorrow maybe and add a little bit more food. I'd add some right now, but I actually just picked up some early this morning and chopped it all up and put it in the freezer, so it's freezing right now. So tomorrow I'll probably chop up a good chunk of scraps and go ahead and put a little bit of additional food. But there's still quite a bit in there. You can see when I pulled all those worms up, they're still working their way around. Quite a bit of food. But again, I'm going to go ahead and push this system pretty hard to just see what kind of production I can get out of the VermiBag Tote. So that's it. I mean, now it's a pretty doggone easy harvest. 9 days, I was able to migrate all those worms over onto each side, and there has to be pushing 2 pounds of worms probably in the system right now. And you can see from the castings, there really were very few worms in it. I'll separate them on the vermi bucket, so maybe in a couple weeks I'll have another little video to show you the results of how many worms I did get out of them. And I'm always surprised, honestly. I'll look at castings we'll pull out of a system and you'll swear there's only, you know, half a dozen worms or so in it, and you bait them out for a couple weeks and instead of a couple dozen, you got a couple hundred. So we'll see. We'll do that in a couple weeks. For now, this system's set. It's ready to go through another cycle. So in roughly 3 to 4 months, this thing will be ready to harvest again. I'll just keep feeding it until it's about full. Then I'll stop and let them consume and process all the material in there, and then do another migration harvest just like we did on this video. So that's all there is to it. Pretty simple process. So this is Tom from VermiBag. Till next time, ciao.